Hey everybody, welcome back to Bookish Daddy. I hope you all had a good holiday and got some good reading done and some new books and all kinds of goodies for the holidays. With New Year's coming up, I wanted to drop my top 10 books of the year and go over them a little bit. 10 is really all I wanted to do just because I only read, I think, 36, which met my Goodreads goal. But any more than 10, and I'm kind of picking a majority of like what I read. That being said, I do have some honorable mentions. Ignore the giant beanie on my head. I haven't got my hair cut because the holidays have been hectic and it's getting out of control. I look like a Sasquatch, so I was gonna take a little bit of a break from doing my hair and just throw a beanie on for this episode. And for the next one, hopefully my hair will be done. Uh, like I said, I really, really hope you all had a good holidays, and I appreciate you watching my videos during the holidays. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you like the video. It helps with the algorithms, and I would really appreciate it. And share this video with your friends. Make sure you're commenting below what you think of my top 10 books. And I'm going to start in reverse order. So I'll start with number 10, work my way to what was number 1. Once it gets these like bottom 6 were rough ordering them. Uh, my top 3 or 4 were pretty easy, but these bottom ones, man, it was brutal. But I'll we'll go over them. So in 10th, we have I Ran Away to Evil, and this is by Mystic Neptune. Dude, this was the coziest book I have ever read, and that's why it made the list. If you are ever looking for a book that is just like no stakes, no anything, like it is just the coziest book ever. And it is super long, but this is the book I've told you all about. It had like character stats, almost like you're playing a video game or D&D. So it is like Animal Crossing meets D&D. It is so freaking cute to see these people running their missions, these mages, these fighters, barbarians, and some of their tasks are like finding sugar to bake cookies or waiting for the necromancer to raise the therapist from the dead so they can like get their therapy for the week. It is it is adorable, and that is why it made the list. It is the coziest of the cozy books I read this year. Coming in ninth is Warrior of the Wild by Trisha Levenseller, another one of my favorite authors. My daughter bought me this book, and it was surprisingly good. So I like Trisha Levenseller's work. I was a little nervous about like a YA Viking book because Viking books tend to be like super violent and graphic and gory. This was almost How to Train Your Dragon uh, if the main character were the blonde girl in the show. Trying to think of her name. Ah, Astrid. So if it were about Astrid and the king kind of kicks her out into the wild, and she, being the headstrong, strong female that she is, proving that she can not only make it on her own but succeed. It is about that. It is about a young Viking girl who gets kicked out of her tribe. She is a super powerful warrior, and not only is she out in the wild by herself, but she is thriving. It is YA, so there's nothing gory, graphic, no smut, nothing like that. It was just a really good Viking pilgrimage, and I freaking loved it. It was so unique, and I love Trisha Levenseller's writing. It was very just a comfort read. I enjoy the woods, and I enjoy like hiking and the idea of like foraging and hunting on your own, and it just being quiet. And this had all those vibes, and it was so good. Coming in eighth was a book my wife had me read, and it is Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Uh, this one, all 3 books in this trilogy were so good, but this romance was my favorite. The dude is like a manly lumberjack, like architect, and the girl is a city girl. So it turns out I like the like country boy city girl vibe. She is an ER doctor, so she's rich and successful. Her parents are rich ER doctors, and he likes the simpler things in life. He just likes working with his hands, and he's trying to get on his feet. Uh, Dude, Abby Jimenez does such a phenomenal job of going over human traits and struggles and portraying all the things that people go through mentally and how to overcome those as a couple, and how you should overcome all these like mental problems or whatever it is you're going through together, and then get to the romance. And she does that in these books. They don't try and like get to the romance and then like, oh, here are my problems. They lay it out front and go through it together, and it builds the chemistry beautifully in this book. uh God, it was good, so good. I wanted it to be higher on my list, but this year I had was probably the best reading year I've ever had. It was insane the amount of good books I read. So this one I wanted to be higher, but it just didn't get above that. So now we are on number 7, right? Yep, number 7. It is, so it's Air of Fire by Sarah J. Maas. I'm kind of lumping all my favorites from Throne of Glass into this. So it's a huge series. I loved a lot of the books. They were all 4 stars or higher. I just went ahead and put this one because it was, if I had to pick a favorite, it was my favorite. Manon is a huge part of this book, and she is my favorite character. Uh, what else can I say? I mean, it's Throne of Glass. It's Sarah J. Maas. I got into ACOTAR and Throne of Glass this year, and really started like just opening my eyes to like romantasy, and this was phenomenal. I mean, it's just, I could go on forever about these books. You all, if you're watching this, have probably read these. If you're into romantasy, I'm kind of like way late to the Massaverse or whatever, but this made the list because obviously it was a phenomenal series. The next one is surprising. So this will be number 6, and it is Forged by Magic by Jenna Wolfhart. And this is a romantasy, but this has a lot more smut in it. Uh, but this was perfectly split into romance and fantasy. Like Throne of Glass is a lot more fantasy. This is 50-50. It is 50% fantasy, 50% romance. It is very spicy, but it also is super cozy. It almost gives off like, if you've seen The Hobbit, it gives off Hobbiton vibes. There's no real high stakes. So it's low stakes, romance, and the fantasy is very cute and fun. Um, this book was written so well. She is able to take this love interest with an elf and an orc from 2 completely different worlds, and just build it so amazingly. It was a phenomenal book and one of my favorite reads of the year, and it had to make the list. Now we're getting into the top 5. So number 5 is Empire of the Vampire, and this is by Jay Kristoff. I, for the longest, thought this was going to be my number 1 read of the year, which just goes to show how many phenomenal reads I had this year. It fell from 1st to 5th, which, I mean, it's still top 5. It is gory, it is graphic, it is dark, depressing, uh, filthy scenes, like it has smut. It is rated mature. So if you do not like any of those things, do not read this. I am warning you. Go look up the trigger warnings and just know that nothing good happens in this book. It is the first book I have ever read that is very dark, depressing, gothic. Like, take a vampire and break him down to his core, like the core belief in a vampire is that they are just like, they have no soul, they have no heart, and they're just heartless. And this portrays that. It is, every time I was like, this can't get worse, it got worse. But it got to the point where I was like, how do I stop reading this? Like, I have to know if anything ever gets better or how bad it can truly get. And oh my goodness, it is grim. It is dark. but it is also one of the first books to ever like make me cry and angry, and like he Jay Kristoff crushed this book, and for those reasons that's why it made it. Also, the artwork in it is freaking beautiful, and the book is super floppy, which I loved. So it's easy to read. It is a long read too. Coming in fourth, another book I thought was going to get in the top two that didn't, is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. If you've been watching me, I have talked about this nonstop since I read it. It is a whimsical fantasy about a girl going through a world that is just, it's almost like Alice in Wonderlandish. The world building in this is phenomenal. Brandon Sanderson does what he does best, and he builds a world as you traverse through the world. So it's not like at the beginning you're bombarded with all this boring stuff. It's throughout the book as you're introduced to new elements, you're learning about them with the characters, and it is just so whimsical, sweet. It's based off The Princess Bride, and it is just, it is the cutest. I wouldn't even call it a romantasy. I would say fantasy. Cutest fantasy with a strong female protagonist that she just crushes it. She's awesome, witty, and fearless. I mean, honestly, she crushes it. Tress is one of my favorite female protagonists, and this book is just, if you're looking for something whimsical, that it doesn't get better than this. Coming in third place, this was tough to pick one of the three. It is Caraval, and this is by Stephanie Garber, and this is the beautiful version of it. So I picked Caraval because the first book is what introduced me to this world. It is another, I don't know if I'd say whimsical, but it is, yeah, it's whimsical. It's more dark fantasy, uh, carnival, Alice in Wonderland vibes too. It's a little more mature than Tress. The stakes seem a little higher, and my favorite thing about this is the fuzzy line between reality and fantasy. The game that the main character is thrown into, you never know what's real and what's fake, and you never know what's going to happen next. I didn't, at least. And all three of these books were phenomenal. I am ready to get to the next trilogy. I haven't started it yet. I even have Spectacular, the novella, that I haven't read yet. But Caraval is third. It had the romance I like. The slow burn was good. The just never knowing what was going to happen next or what was real or fake was fascinating to me. The characters in this are, again, they're just super cool. It's sorry, my memory is just not the greatest. I'm trying to think of the main character's name, Scarlet, and her sister, what was it? Tella. So Scarlet and Tella are both brave and strong, but in very unique and different ways. And just the way they go through this game and the way they play it differently but successfully in their own ways is awesome. And I love the way Stephanie Garber, it's going to sound weird, but the way she describes clothing and physical features and the ambience in a room, I don't know if I have found an author that can get that across as well as R.A. Salvatore, which is one of my favorite authors of all time. And she did it. One of my favorite things is when an author can make me picture a person and what they're wearing and what they're feeling. And Stephanie Garber crushed that. I knew not just the dresses, I knew their headwear, their gloves, their shoes, the way they shimmered when they walked, based off of their surroundings, the ambiance, the music they were hearing, like the smells that were wafting into like rooms. That was fascinating to me that she could build this world where, as I read this book, it almost feels like you're in the game walking through, because you can, at least me, like when I'm sitting in a room reading a book and I'm in it, if someone is able to portray that well enough, it almost feels like you're in the book. And Caraval did that better than almost any book I've ever read. So that is why this got third, was really the ambiance of reading this. The second book, if you can tell by my new shirt, is one of my favorite books of all time, and it is Two Twisted Crowns. This is the second book to One Dark Window. I freaking loved these two books. The second one I loved more because the main couple in this were my vibes. They crushed it. This was dark. It's like a dark gothic fairy tale. And dude, again, the dark vibes in this, she was able to make this feel like you were in a dark forest and it's shadowy and the creatures in this realm, the magic system is all just so dark and fascinating. Uh, it was phenomenal. The spice was great, the romance, the action in these, and I'm a big fan of like dark fairy tales, and this was the best one I've read. It is one of the best books I've ever read, and that is why it got second. And then first, I I hopped on the hype train, and you could probably tell by the sprayed edges. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros gets number one on my list, and I never thought I would say that because these top five all fought for first. I did not buy into the hype. I was like, oh, dragons, smut, fantasy. I like those three things. I'm going to read it. The fact it was blowing up on like TikTok and like thousands or millions of people were talking about it, I was like, there's no way it's going to be that good. Or I was like, oh, it's just people who read smut, or it's just this or that. I kept coming up with excuses. I did not think I would love this book. Dude, I'm obsessed. It is my favorite book. It again, I would say of all time right now. I freaking love the romance, the spice, the on the edge of my seat because Rebecca Yarros, she proved she will kill characters off. She will change things drastically. She took a love triangle where at the beginning I was seeing red flags with one of the characters, and then like the love triangle just like splits. We get a shadow daddy. We get a magic system that I love. A magic system where everybody is like born or develops a different special power, and you get to find out as you go who gets what. That is exciting to me. I love it. And this had that. Just like Two Twisted Crowns, I love a sentient being or a creature that can talk to the main protagonist in their mind. I know that's a very specific niche, but this and Two Twisted Crowns have it, and I think that's why they made one and two. The dragons and their riders can communicate through their minds, and there's just something funny to me when something's going down and you have like that banter or that comedic relief on the side. I love it. Taryn is awesome. The freaking fighting scenes in these are epic. The spice scenes are spicy. The edge of my seatness, like not knowing who's gonna die, who's gonna like do what. It was phenomenal. The best book I think I have ever read. And yeah, I loved it. And I'm on the second book now. I'm going to go to the midnight release of the third one. I'm not wearing it, but I've got tons of Fourth Wing gear for Christmas that because it's all I talk about. I'm obsessed with these books. So I joined the hype train and read it, and it is my favorite book of the year. I'm gonna grab my phone because, like I said, my memory's not the greatest, and this will just be easy. For my honorable mentions, we'll go over those real quick. These were ones I wanted to be in the top 10, but they just couldn't quite make it. But they deserve to be mentioned because they were super fun. The first one is Love Hypothesis. It is one of my favorite romance books I read this year. It is Ali Hazelwood, and it has your fake dating. It has grumpy sunshine, and it's like a teacher student. So those are the tropes in it, and all three I loved. I found out that I was a huge fan of fake dating based off of this book, and it was just a blast to read. The next one is King of Battle and Blood. This is pure smut. So if you've read A Court of Silver Flames, I actually have it over here. Here it is. King of Battle and Blood, and it is by Scarlett St. Clair. Uh, it is smut. It's vampire smut. So if you read A Court of Silver Flames, it is essentially that, but with vampires, and that's it. It's violent and full of nonsense. It is not appropriate for children, and that is pretty much it. And that's why I didn't make the top 10. Is there's not much more to it. If you want to read good paranormal smut, I would highly recommend King of Battle and Blood. Next is The Love Wager. This is another fake dating, yeah, another fake dating romance that didn't quite make the cut, but it was phenomenal. I think I gave it 5 stars, and it was a blast to read. And the last one is Dungeons and Drama. This is a cozy YA romance about a young girl who is in theater club. Her dad owns like a gaming building, and she has to work with him for the summer. While she's working there, she hears a bunch of other teenagers in the back playing D&D, and when she walks by, she finds out, that a bard is one of the characters, and she's like, forget it. I'll sit in on it. I'll be able to sing, act, and get ready for theater, and ends up falling in love with the game and one of the boys. It's cute, it's fun, and it was a 5-star YA read. Those were my top 10 reads and 4 of my honorable mentions. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the content throughout the year. Uh, I'm trying to get better and better with every single video. Hopefully, 2025 brings you some just real awesome videos. I'm going to keep trying to get better at editing, at talking to the camera, not looking at my beautiful wife in the corner of the room because I know you see my eyes darting all the time. Uh, I'm I'm working on it. I'm trying to get better at with my memory. Some of these books as I finish them. That's why I kind of like the vlogs. I can talk to you as I'm reading. Uh, I have a real problem with after like a week. Once I've read a new book, all it just memory wipes. So I'm trying to do my best at giving you a rundown of all 10 of these books. But yeah, so hopefully next year I get better at all of those things and the content just really keeps just boosting. Thank you all so much for joining me on this journey throughout the year and for sticking around. I mean, we're up to over 1,000 subscribers. All of you are awesome. I get to talk to a lot of you on Instagram, Goodreads, and in the comments. And I love it. I really do. I think it's awesome getting to know what other people are reading, what you enjoy about like what I say about my books. And I really hope to continue to do this. And here soon, I'll get you what I'm planning to read for January. Y'all have a great week.